Welcome, guys. How are you doing at CamundaCon so far? Good? Very good. I like that. It's Friday afternoon, so and we're talking about JavaScript here. We're talking about extending the Camunda Modeler. It's we have it prepared in a way that it's fine if we're talking a little bit about new stuff, but we're don't worry if you get lost. So I'm not alone in the room. This is, so to say, we have people that can help. For a quick introduction and hello, this is me. My face on GitHub. This is Philip. Philip, please stand up for a moment. So Philip is another important part of the Camunda modeling journey. So, and obviously there's more people. Guys, can you raise your hand? Other people from the modeling team. If you turn around real quick, there's other people who make the whole modeling experience at Camunda happen. And there's also more people, so when you need help anytime, raise your arm. Maybe your neighbor can help you, or we walk around. So this is a workshop. There is time for you guys to try stuff out. At the end of the workshop, I would like everyone to leave with stuff that works on his machine. So not only works on my machine, but also works on your machine. I think we'll get that. We'll get to the point. Let's see where we go. I will start with a few slides, and then we go right onto the command line and the tools and so on and so forth. So, quick introduction. So, I have to start with the BPMN-IO vision, because when we started BPMN-IO as a project, it was first focused on BPMN only. Now we have also editing toolkits for DMN and CMMN. But when we started the vision, and this is the original slide from the web page at 2014, it says BPMN everywhere for everyone. At that time, it was very hard to, how do I embed my BPMN, which is standard, nice, but how do I get it into my applications to actually see it, right? So at this time, nothing was there. We started BPMN-IO with BPMN.js. We have a very good modeling tool, which is also once it's a modeling tool, but it's also a viewing toolkit. So what you can see over here is part of the vision. You can model stuff. It shouldn't hurt. It should feel good, because otherwise you cannot communicate with BPMN. You can also embed it and annotate it, a little bit like Google Docs style, right? You can add your Google Maps style. You can add your own points of interest, commenting, and so on. So it's extensible in the core. And this is the extensible stuff I'm talking about, thinking about stuff like a token simulation we've built in the past. Also, you can add or remove elements from the palette. So this is just the BPMN-IO vision. This is about JavaScript libraries we've been building at Camunda as part of the BPMN-IO project. So BPMN.js, I mentioned, it's like this, so to say, flagship library in that project, and it's a library that is built for extensibility. We have just a few very basic examples here, but you have overlays, you can use a modeler, you can also use it as a viewer, you can have commenting that persists the comments in your BPMN, so it's not it's just showing a little bit of the option. You have diagram diffing, right? Comparing diagrams visually, because, diffing on the XML is not fun. You have nyancats as well. I will show those later, because you gotta have nyancats with a front-end library. You see the link down there. I will also share the slides later on. So let's get to the fun part. So why we talk about fun? Yeah, because it is extensible, and nyancats obviously is just an example. What we did here, and this is a demo from 4 years ago, like the community day. The proposition was that people, especially business, they fear all the service tasks, they feel all the complexity. So what if you are able to actually model a service task, but it just doesn't look like a service task? It looks like a nyancat instead. It's a fun example, but it showcases, so to say, extensibility. That should be the point, right? Going for the actual profit, just still on the library level, Philip implemented a great library that, or like extension to BPMN.js that shows you guys how the token flows through the BPMN diagram. So think about it, like your colleagues, they get into BPMN, they don't know the token flow yet, right? First, it's just a drawing, but then you gotta understand how the semantics are actually, how stuff moves through the diagram, and this is an amazing learning tool we have, and it's also one of the most complex extensions. This is why I've mentioned it here. Yeah, so profit, in this case, it's not about mining bitcoins, but it's about building something that makes sense, that help you to better understand your processes, to better visualize your data, and also, learn stuff quicker. So going to the Camunda Modeler, who of you guys has used the Camunda Modeler already? Good. We're checking the prerequisites here. So who of you guys has Node.js installed on his computer? guys, you got to do your homework. It's good. We have time to install Node.js. So the Camunda Modeler is our implementation tool. So what does it mean? We, as Camunda, obviously, we have the engine that executes your processes at scale. You got to draw those engines. You have to attach implementation-specific details. This is really what it's all about, right? You use your IDE, Visual Studio Code, IntelliJ. You use that for actually programming and all the stuff that is about drawing a diagram, configuring it, making your processes executable is about the Camunda Modeler. So the Camunda Modeler is powered by BPMN.io. Why is the drawing? Why does the drawing, the modeling experience feel good? Because the modeling experience feels good in BPMN.js. So this is BPMN.js in here. So the modeler embeds its Electron-based application. It really embeds in the front end, so to say, it embeds those libraries. This is very important because this is what we will leverage in a little bit. So you got to understand extensibility in the modeler and also of our editing tools in the modeler is all about extensibility of the of the libraries as well. So now we get to some extension examples that are currently existing. So how do people already use like the extension mechanism, the plugin mechanism in the Camunda Modeler? So one example, and I show that because it's I guess it's the most famous and most widely installed one, is from UMB. It's a partner of us. They've created a property info plugin. And the idea is execution details should be visible on the diagram. So let's make those visible. It is important because that influences the execution semantics of my process, right? It makes a difference if there's a pre-execution listener attached, right? Or if there's what are the other things? There's a lot of things. If there's an asynchronous boundary and those things, it makes a difference. So this is one of the most prominent plugins which are already out there. There is another use case for extending. Why would you like to extend the Camunda Modeler? And that is stuff which is requested a lot and which we're seeing a lot. It's simplification, right? Maybe you don't need pools. Maybe data stores don't matter for you. Maybe you don't need groups. Maybe you just want to have a palette with 5 different items instead of 9. We only have 9. Other editing tools have 50 items in that thing, but you can always simplify. You can also add more stuff. So why do I always have to pull out the tasks and afterwards make it actually a service task? Well, I want to quickly, because service tasks matter most in my domain, I want to pull them out. So really extension on the core editor part, changing rules, making stuff simpler, customizing it, tailoring it to our domain. And we already have an existing mechanism that can be done without without plugins, and I want to mention it, element templates. Who of you guys has heard about element templates already? That's good. So element templates, just a quick summary, you can read about it in the Camunda documentation. But element templates is about quickly templating using JSON descriptors, certain specific task types. What you can see over here, I hope you can see it, mail tasks. So via dropdown, I can choose the kind of task I basically have at hand over here, and using the template, all the stuff that would usually need configured in different tabs in the properties panel, all that stuff is being scaffolded with you, just with a single use of a dropdown. So if I know all my mail tasks follow a specific implementation, for instance, in this particular case, I have a specific Java class that implements those, right? We always send mail in the same way. Then element templates can be, so to say, solution. Some people in the company build those templates, and others, they don't need to know, they can just use and consume them. You can read about that if you're interested in the documentation. So the third use case, which is a newer one, but it's also, if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. It's about validation. So BPMN.js, our toolkits, they are, let's say, what is very beneficial for the user is that we natively understand BPMN. If you model using our tools, the likelihood that the stuff you draw is utter bullshit is very low. Because we understand BPMN, we follow the BPMN rules, there's a lot of stuff we by design do not allow people to do. But there's more stuff behind it because it's very complicated, obviously, right? what matters for a process, for instance, is that start events have labels, right? Or names. If I have a process, it doesn't matter if it's a low-level execution process or executable process or if it's a business process. I have to start with a defined name. Otherwise, my business stakeholders, my colleagues, they don't like it has to be a defined start with a name and an end. It's just a modeling practice, right? There's other interesting things. In this case, what's wrong with the process? You see an X here that indicates a problem on the process level. Look into the process. What could be wrong? Any idea? One at a time? Exactly. Yes, maybe the BPMN standard allows no end, at least it allows no start, but is it a good practice? No, it's not. Be explicit. This is like, obviously there's debate about it, right? This is why this has to be configurable, right? But the point is there's certain practices, building those things in this case, it's no end. There's another problem here, which is not visible. The fact, this is a default flow, but here's no condition attached. That's a problem, right? There's another problem over here, again, label is missing. So you see, those things are, it's not black or white, but it's in the realm where we want to help people, we want to give them assistance, but maybe we're wrong. Maybe there's some very specific use case where they're just like, please ignore this because I know better. So we have a toolkit that enforces a lot of rules, and then we have the other side, like on the validation side, after the diagrams are already drawn pretty nicely, we can still give additional hints, which especially helps people to learn, to better understand, get into the system. So this is another plugin we've built in the last months. It's a result of a Hack Days project from 2018. And what I would like to do with you guys, and this should wrap up the short introductory session, is I want us to install this plugin. I want us to contribute our own rules to the plugin, create our own plugin for the Camunda Modeler that tells this friend which rules to use. Disable label required because in our company we don't use labels, right? We can do without. And I want us to understand how working with the Camunda Modeler plugins, like building Camunda plugins, how that works. And then at a certain point when we're all set up, when we all have it locally available, we can actually play around with it, implement our own rules. And in the end, I would like us to have a very quick wrap-up or a wish I like session. What kind of rules do you think can be interesting? So, any questions so far until this point? No, not yet. Cool. All right. So, as said, to the workshop, we got to download the modeler, we integrate the Linter plugin, we have a Linter plugin starter project you can download next to it, which will be your own Camunda Modeler plugin. We implement our own custom rules. There is a link down here. Unfortunately, you guys can't copy it from your computers, but it is github.com/nico/camunda-modeler/plugins-talk-2019. Can you guys open that in your browser? I'm doing that. Oh, wait. I will increase the font size just a little bit. Oh, is it possible to increase the font size just a little bit? Yeah. The link is on the agenda for the CamundaCon talk. Thanks. Thanks, Niall. So you can also click it on the agenda of the CamundaCon talk. There you go. So let me click that one myself. There you go. So what we've prepared is a little walkthrough through the things, the steps we do. Even in case you get lost or you're like, well, I want a colleague to go through the same workshop, it gets you guys covered. This is also the script I will follow. It has a shortcut section. We'll take the short path. It also has a longer path that explains you a lot more about the details. But as you will see, in the details, it can get a little bit complex. We're dealing about packaging plugins. We're dealing about JavaScript ecosystems, different libraries playing together. So we'll not go the details path for this. But if you guys are interested, you can also go for the detailed steps. So setting up for the goals, let's look into the prerequisites. This is important. So the Camunda Modeler is an Electron-based application. What we are going to do is we're going to download plugins. This is easy. We can do that quite quickly. But we're also going to package our own plugin later. Packaging our own plugin, to do that, we need a JavaScript setup. We need a Node.js installed. So what I would ask you guys is to verify that you have Node.js installed on your machine. Can everyone see my console from the font size? Does it work? All right. So I have Node version 16 installed. Works. What also goes along with it is a package manager. And the package manager allows me to download and install, download dependencies, which I need for development. For all people that are not familiar with JavaScript, it's essentially like Maven. Maven is a downloader and a packager. This is just a downloader. And then we have a third utility, which is npx, which we will use just for quick scaffolding. npx just allows you to download stuff, execute it, and then throw it away. So I have all that stuff set up. I also did download the Camunda Modeler. If I open it real quick, just to show you guys, I have a stock Camunda Modeler downloaded. I can, via the help menu, see the latest version, 3.3.4. If you have old versions of the Camunda Modeler downloaded, please use an up-to-date version for this workshop. Like up-to-date means 3.3.4. And old versions, we're constantly evolving the plugin system. There's also more extensions being added as people indicate that they need that stuff. So there has been some important extensions in the 3.3 release. Please download it. So what I can do, obviously, I can create a diagram, right? And what you see, it's stock. There's nothing. There's no plugins in here. The first step, what I would like us to do, and you can go to the README, to the notes, right? You can go over here because all the steps that we're doing is essentially documented. So the first thing we have to do is we have to locate the folder in which the Camunda Modeler searches for plugins, and in this folder we want to install our own plugin. So for Windows, Linux, and Mac, it's always different folders, right? It's a default folder on macOS where applications store their configuration. It's a default folder on Linux where they store the configuration, and it's a default folder on Windows where applications store configurations. So based on your computer, on your operating system, please locate that folder. I did locate it. It's, for me on Linux, it's .config/Camunda Modeler/resources/plugins. Just to verify the folder is empty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to install a plugin. And the plugin I'm going to install is the Camunda Modeler Linter plugin. Going to GitHub, just checking it out first. What is this Camunda Modeler Linter plugin about? And surprise, surprise, what we see is it adds those nice dots which we saw in the screenshot before, and also adds the ability to validate diagrams. So the library, like the plugin, is available on GitHub, is also including a distribution. So what we're doing is we're installing it. And to install it, you can either clone it from GitHub if you want to. I just use a one-liner utility that essentially does the same. It downloads stuff from GitHub, and then it puts it in a folder. So inside my plugin directory, I'm doing exactly this. That takes a little bit of time, and if all of us do it together, it's a nice stress test for our Wi-Fi. Worked, cool. There's another Wi-Fi, by the way. There's a ship Wi-Fi, which might be faster. So if you experience problems, you can think of using the ship. Yes. So what I did is, inside the folder, I now have an additional folder that contains my Camunda Modeler plugin. I can go into the Camunda Modeler plugin, check it out, and as you can see, there's just a bunch of files in there. The important thing about this plugin is the I will just quickly open that in my IDE or editor. I don't have an IDE, but just an editor. So this is the structure of the plugin. As you can see, there's just a bunch of files in there. What's important is every plugin has an entry point. So it has one file that will be scanned, that will be evaluated by the editor, so the editor actually knows what's going on. So in this particular case, the plugin, if we look into the entry file, it defines, all right, the plugin has a well-defined name that has to be unique. At some point, there will also be an ID. Right now, the name has to be the one thing that is unique. It has a script that is being executed in the context of the client application that is being loaded. And you're also able to inject your own styles. And you can also add your own menu points, like you can interact with the menu. So this is essentially the entry point for the plugin. I did download it in the respective folder, as you can see. So what should happen now is, if I restart the Camunda Modeler, like we have to restart it, if I restart the Camunda Modeler, it should pick up the plugin. Interestingly, it does not. What's going on there? There you go. I don't know what happened there. So what you see, there's actually the BPMN lint. The plugin contributes its own via name, its own action. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a diagram, and as you can see, immediately the plugin will start to work. Will start to validate my diagrams. So in this particular case, the moment I start with the process, obviously there's certain things wrong. The process is missing an end event. The element has a missing name, and it's also not connected. Makes no sense. And what I can do is I can toggle linting. Just imagine you're during development, like you don't want to care about the warnings. You just want to care about it once you're done with a certain step, once you're done with your discussions, right? So if you guys have a BPMN diagram you modeled some time ago or just yesterday on disk, try it out. I will also try it out now. I will open a diagram which I've prepared. This is a big diagram. There you go. So this is a big diagram, as you can see. Let's open the minimap. So as you can see, it's a huge diagram former colleague of mine created. It's essentially like just capturing an application processing, like an complex step involving a lot of participants, as you can see. Not really automated, but that doesn't, not for automation reasons, but more like capturing process end to end. So that diagram does a few things. So as you can see, the colleague, just from the perspective of the Linter plugin, the colleague did a quite good job from the perspective of the Linter plugin. So as you can see, there's only a small amount of errors. So what we can do now is we can check those errors out. Okay, there's an element missing. There's an element missing a label name. Yeah, okay, that is a lane without a name. Yeah, well, should not be that big of a problem, but anyway, let's see. Let's see if there's actually other problems in there. This one is interesting. We have an event-based gateway that forks and joins at the same time. Why is that? Why can that be a problem? Well, because again, it will be harder to understand those diagrams if you both have two outgoing flows and two incoming flows, right? So it's again helpful feedback. It is better if you really tear those two things apart, make sure that it's clear where you join and then also where you fork afterwards. Let's see if we can spot another error. Just for example, there's another one of those down here. It forks and joins as well. And there is another one over here. Yeah. So the end event is missing a label name. So overall, all good. What I could do is I could fix all the problems. I will not do that right now. Were you able to install the plugin? And were you guys able to open a diagram? Did you see that the stuff validates in your Camunda Modeler. Question? Yes, exactly. So the folder, the resources plugins folder might not be there yet. Don't worry, just create it, and then that should work. Who has still problems? In this case, we just walk around and fix those. Anyone having trouble with the setup so far? Do we need to restart the Camunda Modeler? Yes, you have to restart. And on macOS, you really have to restart it. So sometimes you have to go to the dock item and really close it, because on macOS, applications stay open all the time. So you close the window, but then you also have to go to your dock and really, in the dock, right-click, actually close to restart take effect. Cool. That is quite good. We're also quite good on time so far. So now it gets interesting. Now we actually get to the point where we wonder, well, those are predefined rules, but I want to have my own rules, right? Maybe I, as a company, I have my own understanding of things. Maybe a lot of talks at the conference, they talked about straight-through processing, right? Maybe I want to discourage my modelers, my developers, my business analysts, I want to discourage them from adding user tasks. We don't want it, because for us, BPMN, it's just straight-through processing, no user tasks. We don't want to use Camunda task list. We don't like the color, whatever, right? So this could be one of the things. The other thing could be, well, maybe I don't like, in Camunda we have different ways how to implement your service task, right? You can add Java delegates, you can add expression, delegate expression, and so on. New emerging is this pattern of external tasks. External tasks has so many benefits. So maybe I want to discourage my people to use Java delegates, and so on and so forth. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to actually plug it in. Like we want to make the modeler aware of, by the way, here am I, and I want to tell you what rules to follow, and also which, I want to actually implement my own rules. So let's go ahead and do that. Quick double check, we have the linting plugin downloaded and installed, and validation, in this case, shows on the diagram. We did play around with the plugin, so a little bit like this, just our diagram was slightly bigger. So now what we want to do is we want to create a working directory where we set up our own plugin and from there continue. So I've already done that. It's called Camunda Modeler Workshop, and what I'm doing is I'm just opening that in my developer environment. So there you go. It just contains a single BPMN file. Closing this one. So what I got to do next is I'm taking the short route over here. In that folder, I will just set up a plugin that, so to say, it's another Camunda Modeler plugin that exists next to the linting plugin, and it basically configures the linting plugin and says, by the way, those are the rules you should use. Let's see, did it succeed? All right, looks like it. Let's look into this plugin again. Understanding Camunda Modeler plugins, it has an index.js, right? It has a name, and in this case, we're injecting a client. So the plugin exists on our disk, but it's not wired to the Camunda Modeler. We need to make the Camunda Modeler aware of it. So the way we do that is by creating a symbolic link from this directory into the Camunda Modeler /resources/plugins directory. So I'm going into this directory. I'm creating a symbolic link. Symbolic links, Linux and Mac users can, wait, I'll just clear the screen. For Linux and Mac users, there is the LN utilities. For Windows users, it's for Windows users, it's make link /symbolic or something, or /d, make link /d. Thanks, Philip. So basically, I'm mapping my current development environment, so to say, the plugin. I'm mapping that into the Camunda Modeler directory. Doing that, again, in order for the modeler to recognize it, I have to restart it. Quickly doing that. All right, there you go. and right now it says error. All right, that is understandable. But the important bit over here is it shows up. The modeler recognized it. So what's the problem? In this case, this plugin, it has not been built yet. It has not been packaged yet. The modeler needs to have the plugin packaged so it can actually use it, load it, and so on. So what we're packaging the plugin by, let's look into the instructions. First, obviously, we got to install the dependencies. Usually works in JavaScript with npm install. And to package the plugin, we have a development setup that makes sure that the plugin is packaged, and then what's also very common for JavaScript development setups, it will update with every change. So whenever we do something, that will automatically be reflected and rebuilt. Let's see if installation succeeded. It did. I will spawn the development setup. That's it. The development setup takes my plugin, and we're not looking into the details, but it bundles essentially the client plugin. It bundles it in a way that it's accessible to the Camunda modeler, like the modeler can actually load it. Anyone having trouble until this point? Or no, of positive questions. Who managed to install? Is the Wi-Fi still up? I think so. Cool. Let's wait just a little bit until more people have it installed and continue from there. When is our break, Niall? What was it? I think it's in 10 minutes, right? So cool. That would be amazing if we get it set up before the break, and then afterwards we can go wild and actually implement things. I'm closing my complex diagram because BPMN shouldn't be that complex. I'm creating a diagram that is more suitable for my case. Oh, I don't want to do this. I want to do this. Yeah, there's a few things that are super hard for plugins to capture. Like I would like to have a plugin that warns if a diagram doesn't look good, but unfortunately that is highly subjective, and also we can't compute that. Like we try that, auto layouting, it's a complex issue. But anyway, so this plugin obviously, here we have obviously, the only issue we have is that element is missing label or name, right? And the other issue, okay, we have is that the linter isn't working yet. So what we can do once the modeler recognized the plugin, I popped up this nice little developer console, which people who has seen such a console before? All right, that's the Chrome Dev Tools. That's the Chrome Developer Tools. In every browser, in every website, everywhere, you press F12 in your browser, and the Developer Tools open. So because Electron, like we use Electron as a technology, as a shell under the hood, we have a Chrome, so to say, packaged in, and we have Node.js in the backend. This is how Electron works, and Camunda Modeler is an Electron application. We have Chrome in the front end, and we have all the developer tools in the front end. So what we can do now is we can actually start to do things. We can start to interact. We can start to explore what do we actually have. So the developer tools itself, for those of you who are not familiar, you will see a lot of application-related logging happening here. So you see when new tabs opened. In this case, we're saving the workspace. You create a new diagram. You see when resize happens. There you go, right? So there is a lot of stuff happening here. You have the console, which allows you also to debug later on, console.log, and it will end up in here. We have the sources view. The sources view allows me to explore the contents of the Camunda modeler. Same like the sources view for a web page, and allows me to figure out the scripts are actually being loaded. So in this particular case, let's see what kind of sources are configured. All right, So as you see, if you remember, this is my plugins directory, and this is actually a client plugin that has been built. So let's check it out. How does it look like? All right, there's a source map available. I could decide to enable that. Will not do that right now. But what you see that it's a bunch of stuff that has been compiled, and that basically is being loaded by the editor. Or maybe I will actually quickly enable source map. It should be enabled for you guys per default. Source map. Enable JavaScript. Oh, it is enabled, interesting. So it's just not being picked up. Yeah, whatever in that case. So, oh, my diagram is gone. So yes, what I tried right now is, what we can do when the developer console is open, we can reload the modeler, which is a lighter version of restart. We can reload the modeler. So you open the developer console, and then you can press Control-R or Command-R in the developer console. What you see is something like this, right? I ask you to try that out right now. You go into the developer console, you focus it, and you press Control or Command-R. That reloads the modeler. And, oh, that's interesting. It still says the linter arrows are an error. So maybe I actually need to restart it. Oh, sorry. Maybe I also need to restart it once. Later on, the taking point here is you don't have to restart the modeler. While you're building a plugin, you don't have to restart it. But you can actually, there you go. So now the linter arrows have been loaded without errors. You don't have to restart it. You have the developer console open, which you probably have open anyway for debugging to see what's going on. And then you can just reload the modeler to pick up changes. And in the back end, on your console, the plugin will be rebuilt all the time, whenever we change something. So one thing, and I hope we can still do that. Yes, we have 3 minutes left. So what I would like to do is I would like to get rid of this label required rule. I don't like that. So this is my process. It should be executable per default. Ha! There you go. Label required is gone. Why? Why is that? Let's have a look. It is like that because we have a configuration in our custom linter rules plugin. You can find it in custom linter rules .bpmn lintrc, and that configuration says label required is not a problem. We can do something else. We can say warn label required is a problem, just a slight one. I have to. Piece of advice, just save your diagram once and it will always be reopened. So test.bpmn, saving it once, and now the moment I reload, what's going on? That didn't work as expected. So there you go. So now whenever you reload, the diagram will actually be will actually reopen. So as you see in this case, label required is a warning. Going back to this configuration file, which tells me which rules should I take into account for validation, I say label required, putting it to off, and and I should be just fine. There you go. So it's 10 past. We have 10 minutes break. Also, in case there's problems, we have 40 minutes time after the break, so you can enjoy your break. If you have questions, obviously, like personal ones, not for the wider audience, you can already ask those. So you can take a 10 minutes break, and then we see each other 20 past. All right, guys. So I saw a lot of people got it set up. I found one problem that we couldn't quickly resolve. Otherwise, I saw a lot of modelers with label disabled, which is good because we don't need those labels. So to recapitulate, if you want to change the existing rules that are being used, go into your I'm going to close this one. Go into your custom linter rules and go into the BPMN lint .bpmn-lint-rc file. So this is a place where you can switch rules on and off. What I want to get all of us to the point where we can actually implement our own rules and also get a feeling for what it means to implement the own rules. To hopefully convey that it's not absolutely super impossible complicated, but doable, and to give you the freedom to play around with it. So this not only configures label required rules, but as you may have recognized, it also has a mechanism to say, I'm extending from a common rule set. So I'm extending from the common BPMN lint recommended rules. So all the rules that are recommended by this BPMN lint, which is a facility we're using under the hood, and I'm also extending from this common rule set which I've built myself. Think about custom in terms of my company name / recommended, right? So this is essentially a way to say to have different rules and combining those and reusing rules, right? And then on top of it, I can do very fine-grained configuration over here. So in the setup which we've all set up, there is actually the custom plugin. You can find it under the BPM custom linter rules, plugin custom. And what you see in here is there is a rule implemented. There's also an index file that defines the configuration. What are our recommended rules? In this case, no manual task. And then there's a rule implementation for what does no manual task mean. It's a piece of JavaScript, and I quickly would like to walk you guys through it. So what we're exposing is an object that exposes a check function. And the linter works like this. It takes the BPMN model, which, like, not the XML, but an object model of the XML, and then it basically calls the function with all the nodes in the BPMN model, right? And for those of you who are familiar with BPMN, also how it looks under the hood in the XML, there's a lot of different elements. There's tasks, service tasks, sequence flows, message flows, call activities, and so on. There's also if you look into the standard, there's also a hierarchy. So every task is an activity. Every service task is an activity. Every sub-process is an activity as well, right? So those things we basically can employ when checking for the rules. So this rule, we didn't feature it yet. The rule prevents manual tasks. It doesn't work yet because I have to. Oh wait, why doesn't it actually work yet? Probably I have it disabled. Let's check this one. No manual task is just a warning. Let's make it an error. Saving it. There you go. So manual tasks, why are manual tasks, especially when we automate, make no sense? Because I think it's even written in the specification, manual task means do nothing. It will always be ignored, right? Manual tasks have no execution semantics. Like user tasks mean a user does something. Like it's a little bit like blank tasks. It's kind of similar, like do nothing, right? When we want to be explicit and actually automate or be expressive, is it a user? Is it a business rule? Is it like a system, service task? So manual task, in this case, we say we don't want manual tasks. So the function is, so to say, called with all those nodes, right? All the nodes get into this into the function, and at some point, a node, there's a little helper here which is being exposed by another tool, which is used under the hood. And at some point, a node is a manual task, and in that case, I can use a reporter API, like reporter to report, given a node ID, an element has a disallowed type manual task. And to play around with it a little bit, I can also, I'm free to add more warnings to it. Let's try that out. Again, what I'm doing is I need to save this one to save some time. So what I'm always doing is, in this case, now we have two problems. We have a disallowed type manual task and we have a foobar problem. So it shows a little bit like you can go through that and you can define what are the actual problems. You can also configure and find different problems in a single rule, but in general, those rules should be very small and focused. So what I would like to do is I would like to debug that rule with you. I would like to run with you guys through the rule using the Chrome DevTools so you get an understanding. All right, this is exactly what's happening there. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually open the, wait, as you can see, there's a lot of files which is in here. Custom linter rules, there you go. Custom linter rules. And what I'm searching for now, like BPMN. I don't know if it works better for you guys, like if you're able to have source maps. For me, for whatever reason, it says there's source maps, but it doesn't allow me to use those. But either way, what I'm doing now is I'm basically let's only check for the problematic case. I'm doing a change, and every change will always trigger validation of the full diagram, and that's super quick, like even for bigger diagrams. So there you go. All right. What did I do? I added A. Diagram now, the end event now has the label A. Regardless of where the change happened, the validation rule is triggered. So let's look into it. So what do we have in at our hands here? We have a node. All right. A node is the object representation of the BPMN element at hand. It has a type, and it has a few more properties. It has a name, as you can see, it's undefined because there is no name, right? It has a reference to the DI, like the BPMN. To understand BPMN, it's always like the semantics, which is the actual stuff with execution semantics, and then there's the graphical. Every element has a graphical information attached. So in this case, we can actually check the DI, and we can actually check for the bounds, and we see, all right, the element is positioned at 270 in the X, and in the Y, it's positioned at 77. So I encourage every one of you guys to find that file. You can also, let's see if that works for me. No, manual. Yes, that should also be, sorry, I don't tell you about the keystrokes I use. So you can do Command P or Control P in the console to open up with that little menu. And from there, actually type, and that will, it's essentially in modern front-end editors like a quick jump to something, right? So I'm jumping into the no manual task and do some changes, and you will jump into exactly the debugger to see what happens. Does it work on your computers? Quick nod. Those who are doing it, cool. So I saw a few people. So, and JavaScript, as it's not strongly typed like Java, a lot of stuff happens in the debugger all the time anyway. So this is essentially our main tool here to understand the capabilities we have to do the checks, to do additional, to do, so to say, those validations. So one rule, which I promised in the beginning, I would like to implement with you guys, is the rule to discourage the use of user tasks. As we mentioned, straight through processing, right? User task is always slow. Gotta make sure people are not on holiday. So that's, by the way, not true. User tasks are fine, but just for our small example, you know, let's discourage that. And let's also configure those. So I'm going to remove that breakpoint right now because otherwise it will break all the time. What I want to do now to create my own rule, just undoing this. What I want to do now is I want to create another file that implements my no user task rule. In this case, I'm just copying the no manual task rule because it will be very similar. No user task. Creating it. All right. It does not make sense yet. All right. Now it does. It's the very, no, wait. Please don't use user tasks. This looks like a solid implementation for detecting user tasks, and once detected, warn or report the fact that we detected those. Let's see if it works. Trying it out, I'm changing it to user task, and then obviously we have to reload again, like reload the editor again. There you go. And it does not yet work. What's going on? Why doesn't it yet work? Because we didn't configure the user task yet. We didn't tell the editor to actually use the user task as well. So what we're going to do is we're going now into the BPMN lint RC, no user task. We have to define the fact that we want to use the user task. Like this is one of the rules we want to enable for our toolset. I did that. I will reload. There you go. And so now we're pretty much covered. That was a little bit quick. I would like to do it a little bit slower. So I've created this no user task, which is very similar to the no manual task. What we can do as a practice, just add a breakpoint, explore what's going on. In this case, we're just using the check utility to verify has an element a specific type. And if it is a user task, we just log a warning. Or we report that the rule matches. And then what we do is we have to define in our configuration that we actually want to activate the no user task rule. So what you can see is over here, I have to define using my plugin namespace the fact that no user task is an error. Everything clear until here? I see some people nodding. I think the hardest part was installing stuff. Now it gets a little bit easier. So that was obviously super easy. There's more complex stuff to do. We talked about Camunda having way too many options for implementation, right? Imagine you told your colleague about Camunda. It's very easy to implement, and the first choice you have to do is this. All right, it's very easy. It's just 5 options, guys. It's like Subway, you know, you're super hungry, you're going to Subway, and then you're like, yeah, guys, which of those 179,000 combinations you want? I just want to eat. So let's give people some assistance here, right? Let's be clear, what is our architecture, right? What is our pattern in our company? And because I personally like external tasks, I think that those are super awesome. We will make sure that we warn when there's no external tasks, and we give a concise hint that external tasks are actually like not like everything else, but external tasks is not recommended. So what we have to do now is, again, creating a new rule. I call that use external tasks. I will configure that rule again over here. Use external tasks. There you go. And because I'm not 100% sure, yeah, there's so much other implementation kinds around in the company with a legacy. Okay, well, let's make it a warning, right? Let's be fair to the people. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you can stick with the other stuff, but please in the future use external tasks. So how to implement that? Yes. Use external tasks. Thanks. Thanks for the hint. Cool. So let's start with something very basic. Let's first detect service tasks. Please implement using external tasks. Doing that again, opening developer tools, refreshing. This is still my user task. I'm gotta make it a service task. All right, what does it tell me? Please implement using external tasks. Problem is, obviously, our check is not sufficient, right? What? We're having properties panel issues here, right? I'm doing everything right, and it still warms. That's not good. So we gotta figure out when is it actually properly implemented, right? And to do that, let's have a quick look into the model, into the XML. We have the service task. Can everyone see this? I don't know if I can actually. No, I can't. I can't increase the font size here. We have a service task, and it has a Camunda type external, and has a Camunda topic. Sad is not the right topic name. Let's call it happy. So this is a representation of the Camunda external task. So this is a marker. Is that thing external or not? So what I will do is I will create a function is external, and if this stuff is a service task, and if not is external node, I will actually do the warning. That sounds about right. Is external doesn't return anything yet, right? So return. What did we say? What did we say? We looked into the XML. We found there's this Camunda type. What you can do now is you can access those properties. You can query the. Let's quickly jump into the thing and debug it maybe to actually see. So debugger. Debugger is another one of those features in JavaScript. It's a statement. If you put a debugger statement in your code and then it runs in the Chrome DevTools, it will actually open exactly on this spot. So let's try that out. There you go. I know in the code where I want to go. I put debugger. I'm in here. So as we're already matching for service tasks, what is actually the stuff that is available in here? So the node has a type external property. That's amazing. So this is essentially my marker that allows me to define is it external or not. So return node.type equals external. Cool stuff. So we now essentially looked into the service task, and if we have this external property, it's absolutely fine. It has also another benefit. Imagine you start, right? This is your experience when you start. People that start with Camunda, they don't necessarily know, oh, I actually need to add those implementation details, right? So in this particular case, that's a quite cool getting started experience. I've modeled a service task, and it tells me, please implement using external tasks. All right, implement. How should I? All right, implementation, external, cool. Did everyone follow until this point, or should we do another round of walking around and raise your hand, guys? It's fine. Yes, I can do that. So t 10 minutes left. Cool. Thanks. All right. So obviously BPMN is BPMN is strongly typed. So in the XML you have all those elements. When you look into evaluating rules, those elements have types. You can actually query those very efficiently. You can, for instance, as you saw in this case, we can match for service tasks. If we actually know Camunda, we know that not only service tasks actually have an implementation. There's more. Send events have an implementation. Send tasks also have an implementation. So what we actually want to do is we have an extension, like we know the BPMN, but we also know what Camunda supports, and this is obviously a little bit like a magic trick. We have our own representation for, are we supporting service, are we like a service task with an implementation, yes or no? I'm not sure about the spelling. Let's try out if that works, actually. Oh, yes, it seems like. Let's see if that actually works. Let's make this one a send task. All right. So with a little bit more magic, like the understanding, so to say, what we're dealing with here, which elements do we have? We can do a very nicely tailored, like create very nicely tailored rules. And those execute fast, even huge diagrams automatically. So we have 8 minutes left, so I want to show you 2 or 3 rules which we've already implemented, so you get another feeling for what rules look like. That also helps you to maybe look into it for inspiration. I'm quite happy that until this point, I'm quite happy with those things that we accomplished. Creating our own 2 rules, playing around with it, understanding a little bit what does it mean installing a plugin, also going into development setup, developing a plugin, and in this particular case, also being able to develop a useful plugin, like creating rules, and those rules help people a little bit like boundaries to draw BPMN diagrams or make them executable faster. So let's look into the BPMN lint. I'll do that on. So, BPMN lint, this is a library under the hood. It also works as a command line. So, obviously, imagine you would check in those diagrams. You want your CI to fail. If you have those rules visually, you also want to enforce that those rules are being used. It's a little bit like check style on Java, ESLint and JavaScript. Like it's just making sure diagrams have a certain quality criteria which are being met. So this is a core library that implements it. It has a little bit more complex checks. So this checks for sequence flows outgoing from a conditional forking gateway or activity. They have to either be default flows or have to have a condition. This makes sure that the conditions, it's not visible. Like the diagram can look exactly fine, but with those details, which are important for execution, it can, depending on the engine, either fail deployment or it's just inconsistent in terms of what you've implemented. There's other rules which are, and you can see rules in general, they are not complicated. It's all about going into the model, inspecting it, and doing a few choices once in a while. This rule is interesting because I will show you what it means live. Fake join. So fake join refers to the fact that if you model something like this, sorry, not best modeling with touchpads. If you model something like this, if the expectation is that this works like a join, like a parallel gateway join, it does not, right? So one token goes here, it will continue. The second token goes here, it will continue. You have 2 tokens in the flows. It can really mess up the implementation. You don't know what's going on wrong. So it's just about those things making it easier to actually work. So we have 5 minutes left. And I would like to wrap up the talk. And I would like to spend 3 minutes to maybe collect rules from you, ideas for rules that we might be able to implement. So we've installed one plugin, we've created our own plugin, we played around with our own plugin. You guys got a feeling of the development setup, how that actually works, like you can actually reload the modeler to pick up the changes. We looked a little bit into debugging that, like understanding what's actually going on, which kind of capabilities we have. And actually we managed to implement 3 rules, which is a pretty cool thing. So has any one of you guys suggestions for rules that should make it into the core? One suggestion, that's good.
Actually, a suggestion not to make an error when you have a missing label at the start or end event within the subprocess.
That's a good one. So yes, so the suggestion is, within a subprocess, it's actually fine to not have a label on a start or end event. Very good rule. In the context of executing processes with Camunda, a wish for my rule is make sure that every diagram contains exactly one executable process. So thinking about it a little bit like this, we can extend the existing rule set. We have the setup, all those things, and if things go right, we will also have that as a core capability into the model in the modeler sooner than later. So yeah. That's a little bit outlook on the topic you saw today and explored. Is there questions? We have 3 minutes left. Unfortunately, I'm a little slow on the... If there's no questions, I will be on the venue for a little bit longer. Philip will be on the venue for a little bit longer. You have the workshop slides. We have documentation on plugins. We have the Linty plugin itself. We have a complete example inside the Workspace checked in. We are on GitHub, so the whole team, Camunda/Camunda Modeler, you can shoot issues. All the projects like the Camunda Modeler Linty plugin, it's also on GitHub. The linting infrastructure is on GitHub. You can create all issues on GitHub. We can discuss things. You can find us in the Camunda forum or in the BPMN forum. I thank you very much for your time, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it.